How to change someone without changing them. One of the laws that I shared in the 6 laws of leadership video is the law of change, which basically says that you literally cannot change anyone else. You cannot change anyone else, or you cannot control or direct or influence their behavior in any way. You can only change yourself. That's the only place where you have power. Now, that sounds like common sense, and yet, so many times, the question that I get asked is, how do I change somebody's mind? How do I convince somebody? How do I inspire somebody? How do I motivate somebody? How do I bring my team to see the vision? How do I get my team to trust me? So many of these questions that we all have as leaders, as managers, for ourselves, are basically thrown out of the window by this law, the law of change. You cannot change, motivate, inspire anybody else. You can only change and control yourself. That's the only place where you have any influence, any direct causation. And if I say I can move my finger, I can do that. But if I say you move your finger, no matter how many times I say that, the only access for me is to speak, but not directly to move your finger. So the title of this video is how to change someone else without changing them. And it sounds like a paradox. So this video will be like a mind bender. So stay with me and slow it down and watch it multiple times to really get it. And many times, as I said, right, I have people coming to me saying that I want my boss to appreciate me more. I want my colleague to support me more. I want my team to dream bigger and take more risks. So we want all of these things, and which is perfectly fine. We want to be successful, and we have to work with other people. We cannot do a lot alone, which is why we need leadership. But a question which I want to ask is, what is it that you want to be different about somebody else? So first of all, identify what is it that you want to be different about somebody else, and that somebody else could be your manager, could be your colleague, could be your wife, could be anybody. And the simplest way is asking for it, right? Asking for what you want. And I want to highlight that before I go into the meat of the video, because so many of us don't even do that. We don't even ask, and then we blame and we complain and we resent ourselves and others for not getting what we want or not getting the behavior that we want. And many times it can be as simple as asking for it. Like, can you do this? Can you stop doing this? Can you do it this way and not this way? So asking for what you want is the first simple step. At the same time, it only has limited means, because you're still trying to control or still trying to direct somebody else's behavior, which is anyways outside of your sphere of control. When you ask something from somebody, if it sounds like an accusation, it will backfire. See, people do not want to be pushed. And when you push people, they push back. That's the foundation behind the law of change, right? You cannot change anybody else. In fact, the more you try to change, what you get is resistance, and even hurts the relationship. Forget about the task, the situation, the issue, the project, the deadline, whatever it is at hand. What is more important is that it impacts the relationship negatively if you push people. So asking for what you want can work, but if it sounds like an accusation, if it sounds like you're pushing, it will probably backfire, because when you push people, they push back. That's how we function as human beings. So what do? How do you change somebody without actually changing them? So there are two levels of changing somebody without actually changing them. The first is on the level of how you are observing them, how you are perceiving them, how they appear to you. And it's very important to see that if you want somebody to be more appreciative, then that naturally means that you do not see them as appreciative right now. If you want somebody to be kind, then you do not see that person to be kind right now. If you want somebody to be more bold or to dream big, then that means that you are currently observing them as not being bold or not dreaming big. So the first level of change, like how to change somebody else without changing them, right? So the only access for you to change is changing yourself. So the first level of how to change somebody else is to see that your perception, the way that you are observing, the way that somebody else appears to you, occurs for you, is only in your perception, is only here, right? So if I say that you are not kind or my team is not kind, it's the not kindness or the not boldness is here, it's not in the team. So the first way to change somebody else is to see that your perception of anybody else not being appreciative or a team not being bold is just that. It's your perception. It's your perception that you're projecting onto them. It's not a trait about them, right? Because no human being or no team is not bold or not dreaming or not appreciative. That's a way of looking at it. And if that is that, then simply change your perception. So instead of saying my boss is not appreciative, or instead of not just saying but also thinking, perceiving, because that is how your boss appears to you in your mind, that is the truth for you. So instead of trying to change, simply change your perception, because it anyways is your perception. So what you can change is you can totally recreate or perceive your boss actually as being appreciative, your team as being bold. And this is where I want you to stay with me, because it will sound very counterintuitive, because you always find what you go looking for. And if the notion in your mind is that somebody is not appreciative or the team is not bold, then you are going to see evidence for that. You're going to see proof for that. See, this is the same principle at work when we decide to buy a car and we see that car on the roads everywhere around us. So instead of changing somebody, see that whatever it is that you want to change in them is only in front of you, is what you are seeing, because that is your internal truth about that person. So instead of saying my team should be more bold, start to see them as more bold right now without doing anything. And you will start to see evidence of boldness. You will start to see evidence of whatever it is that you want them to see. And in your default state, when you're saying somebody is not bold or somebody is not appreciative, even if there is evidence of being bold or appreciative, you're missing them because you're not looking for them. See, the same car was there all around on the road, but it was not visible to you because you were not looking for them. The moment you decide to buy, the same car starts to appear. Nothing has changed on the road. What has changed is what you're looking for. And it's your brain's job to find evidence, to find proof for what you are looking for. So if you're looking for not appreciation, not being appreciative in your boss, if you're looking for not dreaming big in your team, that is what you will find. That is what you're looking for. So when you simply change your perception, when you simply change how you're looking at a situation, at a person, at a team, you will start to see more evidence of that. So that's level one. That's one level that you can actually change somebody else by shifting how you are looking at it. Because anyways, whatever that you're seeing is not the objective truth. It's what you are projecting onto them is what you're perceiving. But that's still you can say that's very passive, right? That sounds fake. That's still very passive. But still, that's the first level of change. And just by doing that, people will also start to acknowledge and reciprocate with the behavior that you're seeing in them. The second way that you can actually change somebody else without changing them is you start to acknowledge them for that. So the behavior that you want to see more in somebody, you start to acknowledge them for that behavior already. So let's say if you want to see your team dream big, or if you want your boss to be more appreciative of your ideas, so first of all, you change your perception of your team as being bold and your boss as being appreciative, which means that your brain will find evidence for that. You will start to see those places where your boss and your team is already doing so, and you have been missing them all along because you were not looking for them. So now when you see them, you start to acknowledge those people. You start to reach out to your boss. You start to reach out to people and start to acknowledge them for that. Say, I saw you did that. I saw you dreamed big here. Thank you for that. Thank you for appreciating me. Thank you for doing that. This is what we need. And they will start to do more and more of that without you doing anything extra, anything new in the rest of your life. You don't even have to ask for it. Whatever that you appreciate will appreciate. And it is very important to understand that we are not doing the acknowledgement or the appreciation because we want more of that. But that's manipulation. What I'm talking about is not a tactic, it's not a strategy, it's not a tool to change somebody else. It's simply a realization that if we genuinely work on ourselves, if we genuinely start to notice what we want somebody else to change, because that was already there, and we start to acknowledge that, whatever you appreciate will appreciate. When you appreciate your boss to be appreciative towards you, the boss will automatically start to have that behavior more. Not because we are manipulating them, but simply that's how human beings work. That's a law of change. You cannot change anybody else. You can only change yourself. And when you start to acknowledge other people, they will start to do more and more of that behavior without you doing anything. You don't even have to ask for it. You simply stop looking. First of all, you have to stop looking for the evidence to the contrary. Otherwise, that will take you off balance, right? That will take you off center, and you will only see what is missing. So first of all, the first level of change, you start automatically, first of all, within you, you start to see that person, create that team as being bold, as being appreciative, as whatever that you want the behavior to be. And then whenever you see evidence for that, even in small instances, you start to appreciate, you start to genuinely look people in the eye and say, I saw you did that, this is wonderful, this is what we need. And automatically that will increase, that behavior will increase. And this leads to an upward spiral, right? Even though in the beginning that behavior is probably like a very small percentage of that person's whole day, when we appreciate, it will create an upward spiral, and that behavior will start to be more and more visible in their actual behavior. On the other hand, when we focus on feedback, when we focus on what is not working, when we focus on you should change or they should change or my boss is like that, all of that accusational energy, it creates a downward spiral. When I say to you, you should be more appreciative of me, it will actually decrease the chances of that person being more appreciative and create the opposite energy, create the opposite emotion, create the opposite reaction of what we are desiring. And that's not because somebody is right or wrong or less capable or uncaring. That's just a law of change. That's how human beings work. And by acknowledging somebody, by genuinely acknowledging, like not once again, not as a tip, because otherwise it will backfire. Otherwise it will not work. If you genuinely acknowledge somebody, heart to heart, can speak to somebody, you did that, this matters to us, this is what we need, this is wonderful. It will create an upward spiral, and whatever is the behavior that you do not want to see will start to diminish. And the behavior that you want to see, that you want to experience more and more, will become more and more visible. And that's how you apply the law of change, right? That's how you change someone else without changing them. That's how you change someone else by only working on yourself, right? And it's hard work, because the moment that person comes in front of you, you see all of that negative energy, the emotion, the frustration, the accusation, the resentment coming up, and you have to deal with all of that. You have to let that go, and you have to see that person the way that you actually want to see them and acknowledge them for that. And that simply will over time create more and more of that behavior. And that's why I always say that it only takes one person to lead. It only takes one person to lead. Anyways, you cannot lead somebody else. That's a law of change, right? You cannot direct anybody else. You cannot motivate, inspire anybody else. You can only do that for yourself. And if you do that for yourself, others will automatically do that, not as a causation of what you're doing, but just because that's how human beings work. If I drop a ball, it will go down because of gravity. That's a law of gravity. Similarly, what I am talking about is so fundamental to human beings that if you do that, then that will just happen. Not, once again, not as a manipulation, not as a strategy, tactic, but it only takes one person to lead. So if you can simply be what you want other person to become, And if you start to acknowledge other people for that, they will actually start becoming that and showing up with that behavior in their language, in their behavior. Yeah, that almost sounds like magic. And if you practice it, it can actually work like magic as well. It can actually work like magic. So just start to see whatever it is that you want to start seeing in others. So if you see my wife is not like that, if you say my husband is not like that, if you say my friend is not like that and I would love them to do that, start seeing that and acknowledge that behavior already, because it's already there. And boom, you will actually start to notice that person actually change, like literally change and exhibit more of that behavior, not just with yourself but also with others. And once again, this, I told you, this is a mind bender, right? This is a mind bender. This is paradoxical, and a lot of things we talk about in human behavior is paradoxical. So stop trying to understand, stop trying to make sense of it. And understanding and making sense of what I'm talking about doesn't make a difference anyways, right? What makes a difference is when you act, when you go out in the world and practice what I'm talking, what I'm trying to communicate here. Practice is the only thing that changes. See, if you can ride a bike, you don't need to understand how you do balance. You can still ride a bike. So whatever I'm talking about here, go out and practice that. That's the only thing that matters. Understanding it, you can spend a decade understanding it, but it doesn't make a difference. And you don't have to understand to practice it, to put it to use, to see the results. So that's my message as I end this video, that even though this might be a mind bender or a paradoxical, don't waste your energy in fighting that. Go out and practice these two levels of change when you want to change somebody else, and you will see that only by changing yourself, only by working on yourself, you can have others around you produce the behavior which helps you, which helps your team, which helps all of you together to move towards a common objective that is driving you. That could be a business result, that could be a relationship result, or that could be something as simple as having a good time with my family. Thank you.